I'm Cynthia Durant, and I would like to share with you some of the most amazing news I have heard in the world of type 1 diabetes. Both of my little boys, Hunter, who is 9, and Dagan, who is 7, happen to be type 1 diabetic. They developed type 1 diabetes when they were still just 2 years old. I have spent the last 6 or 7 years researching everything I can about type 1 diabetes, partly to help with their care, but also because I wanted to understand whether a cure was ever really going to happen for them. Year after year, pharmaceutical companies and research companies release a lot of products that make a type 1 diabetic's life marginally better, but I hadn't really seen anything that seemed to speak of a cure being developed. Well, in 2016, that changed. Washington University Medical School out of St. Louis, Missouri, working with Harvard Stem Cell Research Center out of Cambridge, Massachusetts, released information on a project they had been working on in which they had retrieved adult stem cells from a type 1 diabetic, matured these stem cells into fully functioning beta cells. That was astounding. No one had ever thought that a type 1 diabetic can participate in what's known as host-to-host transplantation. In a host-to-host transplantation, there is no need for anti-rejection medication because the organ comes from the host himself. And there's no need for immunosuppressive therapy, which we all know can wreak havoc on a type 1 diabetic's already sensitive immune system. So when this information was released, I really was ecstatic. And I was reading everything I could to see how they would discover a delivery system that could be implanted into a type 1 diabetic and allow these beta cells to function without being damaged by their immune system. Well, in May of 2017, a company called ViaCyte, headquartered in San Diego, California, issued a press release in which they detailed a product they had developed. It is a pouch about the size of a credit card that they filled with beta cells. The beta cells they used were derived from embryonic stem cells. Now, an embryonic stem cell is basically a second-party donor. So anyone receiving this pouch would have to go on anti-rejection medication and immunosuppressive therapy, and it potentially could reject this beta pouch regardless of any therapy they were on. But it did show that these beta cells, when put into the pouch and inserted subcutaneously, that means just underneath the skin, they function normally. They sensed blood sugar and released insulin, and most astounding, they were protected from the body's immune system. Really, this was the most exciting news that we could have hoped for. It means that there is an effective cure out there right now. The science is there, and it works. So, as you can imagine, I was just waiting for these two technologies to be married together. I figured it was the next logical step in the process. Well, in August of 2017, ViaCyte released another press release in which they said they were going forward with second-round testing of this pouch. It had been so successful, but they were going to continue to use embryonic stem cells, which I honestly can't understand why they would continue to do that when they know a type 1 diabetic would go from being a chronic type 1 diabetic taking medication, care, treatment, and therapy on a 24-hour basis to being a chronic organ recipient, taking immunosuppressive therapy and organ rejection medication for the entire time that they would be using this pouch with embryonic stem cells. Another problem is they were continuing to test in the extremities subcutaneously when they know that the product works perfectly fine subcutaneously. Why wouldn't they check to see if these beta cells could function near the pancreas and the liver, where they could actually have an effect on the alpha cells of the pancreas? I think that would be the next step in the process. Well, I can only guess at why this company would continue to research and continue rounds in this manner. Research companies and pharmaceutical companies have been telling us in the type 1 diabetic community to just wait, just give them 5 more years, just 5 more years. And you know, they've been saying that since the 1970s. It's been 50 years since they've been saying that. And in those 50 years, our loved ones have suffered, they have died, they have suffered retina damage and blindness, they have suffered kidney damage, dialysis, organ transplant, organ failure. They have suffered peripheral nerve damage and repeated amputation because they've needed just 5 more years to just keep checking and testing. Well, I say no more 5 more years. We know that the science for an effective cure for type 1 diabetes is out there right now. We know this pouch from ViaCyte works. It allows the beta cells to function normally. It allows the beta cells to be protected and to thrive. We also know that a type 1 diabetic can donate his or her own stem cells, which means they would never have to risk organ rejection. And we also know that the only way to repair the damaged insulin glucagon loop that occurred when the beta cells on the pancreas died off is to put those beta cells back near the alpha cells. That's the only way that they will get a normal, healthy blood glucose response. And if we know that that is available, we should demand that they follow up on this research and that it be fast-tracked as soon as possible. I say no more 5 more years. I say demand the cure now.